Did you know the average person has over 6,000 thoughts per day? Now here's the real kicker. More than 80% of those thoughts are negative, not based on reality, not helpful, just noise. So let me ask you this. How many of those thoughts are quietly running your life? And what if I told you most men never question them? Think about it. You wake up, and before your feet hit the ground, your mind is already whispering, you are behind. You are not enough. Something will go wrong today. But who told you that? Where did that voice come from? And more importantly, why do you believe it? See, we live in a time when overthinking is worshipped. Quick reactions are mistaken for intelligence, and silence is feared. Because in silence, you have no distractions. Just you and your unfiltered mind. That is why today's message is not about motivation or hype. It is about something far more powerful. Learning to think less, talk less, and focus more. Because when you master that quiet space inside you, everything changes. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire. But do you know where his real strength came from? Not from armies, not from power. From sitting in silence, wrestling with his thoughts, and choosing what to believe. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Most people never do. They become prisoners of their own thoughts. But not you. Not after this. Because in the next few minutes, you are going to learn how to train your mind to stay calm when the world tries to shake you. You are going to understand why less noise means more power. And you are going to realize that silence is not emptiness. It is the place where the strongest men are made. And right after this, you will see exactly why this quiet discipline has changed everything for me, and why it just might change everything for you too. 1. Do not believe everything your mind tells you. Your mind is a brilliant liar, and it knows exactly how to trick you when you are not paying attention. Let me ask you this. How many times have you believed a thought that turned out to be complete nonsense? Something like, I am falling behind. I screwed everything up. No one really respects me. It feels real in the moment, right? But here is the truth. Thoughts are not facts. They are stories your mind tells you, and some of them are garbage. Your thoughts can build you or bury you, and most people hand them the shovel. A few years ago, I used to wake up with a tight knot in my chest almost every morning. Nothing had even happened yet, but my brain was already whispering, you are behind. You are failing. Something is going to collapse. It took me years and a deep dive into Stoic philosophy to realize that voice was not the truth. It was just mental noise, and I had been treating it like gospel. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." That quote hit me like a hammer, because I had been doing the exact opposite, letting my thoughts control me instead of learning to control them. Here is a game-changing perspective. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who hears them. Imagine your thoughts are like trains pulling into a station. Some are filled with fear, some with regret, some with raw, ugly self-doubt. You do not have to get on every train. You can let them come. You can let them go. That shift from being the thought to watching the thought is where your power begins. One phrase can separate chaos from clarity. I learned this trick from a former mentor, someone who carried himself with such calm, I thought nothing rattled him. Until one night, he confessed something. Every day I wake up, and my first thought is, I am failing, but I do not believe it anymore. Instead, he tells himself, I am having the thought that I am failing. That one phrase creates distance. It is not denial. It is recognition. You are not drowning in it. You are observing it. Just like a dark cloud. And guess what? Clouds always pass. Not every thought is yours to keep. Some thoughts are from childhood. Some are from fear. Some are echoes of someone else's voice that you accidentally believed. You cannot stop them from showing up, but you can stop feeding them. Ask yourself with calm, like setting down a stone you have carried too long. Is this useful? Is this strengthening me? Would I say this to someone I love? If the answer is no, let it go. Not with judgment. Stoicism is not about pretending you are fine. It is about reclaiming control one thought at a time. When you learn to question your mind, you stop being its victim. You stop reacting to every fear, every doubt, every false warning. You become the calm in the storm. And the moment you realize your thoughts do not define you, that is the moment you become unshakable. 2. Real men do not need to talk much. The loudest man in the room is often the weakest. There is a dangerous myth floating around that you have to speak up to prove your worth. That strength means being the most vocal, the most opinionated, the first to react. But real strength, it rarely announces itself. There is a difference between making noise and making impact. Years ago, I worked with a man named Robert. In a team of talkers, he stood out for one reason. He barely spoke. In meetings, others jumped to interrupt, explain, prove themselves. Robert just sat, still, listening. But when he did speak, it was quiet. It was deliberate. And the entire room would stop talking. It was not because his voice was loud. It was because his words were heavy. They carried weight, because he never wasted them. That is when I realized power is not in how much you say. It is in how much people listen when you do. Ego loves attention. Wisdom loves silence. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The more we value things outside our control, the less control we have." That includes validation, applause, and being right. Most men speak too much because their ego cannot stand silence. They rush to respond, to defend, to show they know. But silence is not weakness. Silence is confidence without performance. Speaking less is not about fear. It is about focus. When you stop reacting to every comment, every challenge, every opinion, you conserve your power. And more importantly, you stop leaking your energy into things that do not deserve it. Ask yourself, does this argument build me? Does this explanation matter? Do I really need to respond? Or am I just afraid of being misunderstood? Epictetus said, "If someone speaks ill of you, do not defend yourself against his accusations. Respond with silence, or respond with who you are." That line hit me hard, because I used to explain myself way too much. I thought if I just said the right words, people would finally understand. But you know what happened? Nothing changed, except I felt drained. Now, if I am misunderstood, I breathe, I observe, and I let time and truth do the explaining. A man who controls his words controls his presence. Every time you pause before speaking, you send a message to yourself and others. You are not reactive. You are centered. You speak when it counts, and when you speak, people listen. Silence, used wisely, is louder than shouting. In a noisy world full of men trying to be heard, be the man who does not need to speak just to prove something. Let your actions talk. Let your presence talk. Let your silence talk. Because the most dangerous man in the room is not the one talking. It is the one listening and choosing exactly when to strike. 3. Control what belongs to you. There is a line, invisible but brutal. It separates what you control and what you do not. The sooner you find that line, the sooner you get your power back. Let me say it straight. Most men waste their lives fighting battles that are not theirs to win. They try to control other people. They try to control outcomes. They even try to control how the world sees them. But here is the truth. If it is outside your mind, it is outside your control. And if you fight that, it will break you. When life feels like it is falling apart, start with this one question. What is still mine to manage? I remember talking to a man who lost everything in a single year. His business, his marriage, his confidence. He said, "It felt like I was drowning and no one could hear me scream." But something shifted when he found a single quote by Epictetus. Some things are in our control and some are not. He took a notebook and drew 2 columns. On one side, things he could not control, the economy, her decision to leave, other people's opinions. On the other side, things he could, his habits, his mindset, his next step. That was his turning point. When you stop chasing what is out of reach, you can finally grab what is already in your hands. Pain is not the problem. Powerlessness is. It is not the setbacks that break you. It is the feeling that you cannot do anything about them. But there is always something you can do. Even if it is small, even if it feels insignificant, you can choose how to respond. You can choose where to focus. You can choose what to hold on to and what to let go. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire and still reminded himself daily, you have power over your mind, not outside events. That is not weakness. That is discipline. That is leadership, starting with yourself. If you want peace, stop trying to control what was never yours. You do not control how people treat you. You do not control whether today goes your way. But you do control whether you carry resentment or move forward, whether you spiral in thought or take one clear step. That is what Stoicism is about. Choosing your strength, not chasing control. I used to try to manage everything, plans, people, perception, and it nearly tore me apart, until I realized that peace does not come from perfect outcomes. It comes from perfect ownership of your own lane. Your control ends at the edge of your will. Beyond that, let go, not out of defeat, out of wisdom. Because the man who learns to focus only on what belongs to him becomes untouchable. Not because life gets easier, but because he stops wasting strength on what was never his to carry. And that is how you become unshakable in a world that never stops shaking. 4. Stop watering what is already dead. How many things in your life are you still feeding, even though they stopped growing a long time ago? Old relationships, unfinished dreams, painful memories. You keep showing up, keep investing your energy. But deep down, you know, it is already gone. The past cannot bloom again, no matter how much you revisit it. I once spoke to a man who could not stop replaying the breakup with a woman he thought he would marry. It had been over 2 years. She had moved on, started a new life, but he kept checking her social media, rereading their old texts, reliving every fight and every smile. He said, I just want to understand what went wrong. But here is the truth no one likes to hear. Understanding does not always bring peace, and not everything needs closure. Sometimes you have to stop asking questions and start building answers with your own 2 hands. Regret is a loop. Wisdom is a decision. Stoic philosopher Seneca once said, "He suffers more than necessary who suffers before it is necessary." Most pain does not come from the event itself. It comes from clinging to the memory of it. You are not hurting because of what happened. You are hurting because you keep reopening the wound. I know, letting go feels like betrayal. It feels like admitting defeat. But here is the flip. Letting go is not weakness. It is making space for something better to grow. What you water grows, but not everything deserves to grow. Your attention is a currency, and you spend it every time you replay that argument, reread that message, or reimagine what could have been. But here is the hard question. What has all that replaying given you? Clarity or confusion? Freedom or frustration? If the answer is pain, then it is time to redirect your attention. Not because it is easy, but because it is necessary. You cannot move forward with your feet stuck in cement. Letting go is not a single act. It is a practice. It is waking up every day and choosing not to carry what no longer serves you. And it starts with small, clear choices. Unfollow. Stop checking. Stop explaining. Stop waiting for the past to apologize. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Do not wait for the past to treat you fairly. Treat your present with intention." Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is walk away from what once mattered. Not because it never did, but because you matter more now. So stop watering what is already dead. Put down the old watering can and pick up the tools to plant something new, something real, right here in the present. That is where your life actually happens. And that is the only place worth growing. 5. Accept the truth and move on. Some truths do not feel fair, but they still need to be faced. There is a hard moment in every man's life when he realizes things did not go the way he planned. She did not stay. The business failed. He is not where he thought he would be by now. And in that moment, there is a dangerous temptation to resist reality, to replay it, to rewrite it, to reject it. But here is the hard truth. You cannot heal from something you refuse to accept. Pain that is denied gets buried. Pain that is accepted gets released. I once spoke with a man who spent 3 years denying his burnout. Every time his body tried to speak, headaches, fatigue, anger, he overrode it with caffeine, ambition, and pride. Until one day, it all collapsed. He told me, "I was pretending everything was fine, long after it was not." That sentence haunted me, because I have done the same. Smiled when I was breaking, pushed forward when I should have paused. But the truth never disappears. It waits, and the longer you ignore it, the harder it hits when it returns. You do not have to like the truth, you just have to stop fighting it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Willing acceptance now of all external events. Objective judgment now, at this very moment. Unselfish action now." Notice that last part, willing acceptance. He is not saying give up. He is saying start from where you actually are. If something failed, say it. If it hurt you, admit it. If you were wrong, own it. Because what you do next only matters when it is based on reality, not fantasy. Acceptance is not passive. It is the most active choice you can make. It is standing in front of the mirror and saying, "Yes, this happened, and now I decide what happens next." The man who accepts the truth has nothing left to hide. No more lies to keep track of. No more, maybe someday, illusions to protect. And from that clean place, decisions become simple, not easy, but clear. The strongest men are not the ones who avoid the truth. They are the ones who use it. I remember the exact moment I stopped blaming the world. I was sitting in silence after another failed conversation, wondering why I kept repeating the same pattern. Then it hit me. I was always looking out there for the reason. But the truth? It was inside me the whole time. And that realization was not comforting. It was crushing. But also, it was freeing. Because when you realize you are the problem, you also realize you are the solution. Acceptance is not about surrendering to pain. It is about refusing to waste another second denying what already is. You are here. Now what? Let go of the fight. Breathe. Speak the truth, even if only to yourself. And then take the next honest step. That is how forward begins. 6. Silence, the ultimate weapon. Powerful men do not shout. They pause. We live in a world addicted to noise. Everyone is trying to talk over everyone else. But the most dangerous man in the room? He is the one who does not need to say a word. Silence is not the absence of strength. It is the presence of control. I remember watching my father in a heated argument once. The other man was loud, aggressive, trying to dominate the space. But my father? He stood still, arms crossed, eyes locked, not reacting. The tension was almost unbearable. But here's what I noticed. The louder the other man got, the more respect my father gained without saying a thing. That is when I first learned. Silence is not weakness. It is strategy. Silence makes others uncomfortable. Use it wisely. Most people are terrified of silence. They rush to fill it, explain themselves, justify every move. But a man who is comfortable in silence sends a clear message. I am not here to prove anything. Seneca said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." We waste it in arguments, in gossip, in explaining ourselves to people who have already made up their minds. Silence is not just peace, it is efficiency. The man who can stay silent can stay powerful. When you are insulted, and you do not flinch. When you are misunderstood, and you do not chase validation. When you are provoked, and you stay calm. You take back control. You become the man who chooses how and when he engages. Not because he is afraid to fight, but because he only fights battles that matter. Sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. I once had someone attack me publicly, twisting facts, trying to get a reaction. Every part of me wanted to clap back, but instead, I waited. I watched. I stayed silent. 2 weeks later, their story fell apart without me lifting a finger, not because I had the last word, but because I never gave them the power of my attention. Stillness is not emptiness. It is where your real strength is forged. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength." Silence is where you observe, think, and choose. It is where your words gain weight, because they are no longer reactions. They are decisions. In a world where everyone is shouting, be the man who knows when to shut up, listen, and wait. Not because you are passive, but because you are focused. You understand this. Power is not in how much you say. It is in how little you need to. 7. Speak less, think more. Not every thought deserves to become a sentence. We live in a time when people speak faster than they think. We post before we pause. We react before we reflect. But here is the truth most men never hear. Speaking is not strength. Thinking is. And the ones who speak less usually know more. Control over your words starts with control over your impulses. I used to be the guy who filled every silence. Debates, meetings, relationships, I had to get the last word. Because deep down, I thought that being right meant being respected. Until I watched a mentor in a high-stakes negotiation. The room was tense. Everyone was talking fast, trying to impress, but he sat back, calm, silent. He let the chaos unfold and only spoke once the dust had settled. What he said was simple, but it changed the direction of the entire meeting. Afterwards, I asked him why he waited so long. He said, "I was not thinking about what to say. I was thinking about what not to say." That line stuck with me for life. The space between thought and speech is where wisdom lives. Epictetus wrote, "Nature gave us one tongue and two ears so we could listen twice as much as we speak." But most people reverse it. They talk themselves into corners. They argue without understanding. They explain themselves to people who do not care. Speaking less is not about silence. It is about precision. It is learning to let your thoughts simmer before serving them. The man who masters his tongue masters his outcome. Imagine how many relationships have been ruined by one careless sentence. How many deals have been lost by one arrogant remark. How many moments have been poisoned by a reaction that could have been avoided. Every word you say is a tool. And just like any tool, if you swing it without aim, you hurt someone, usually yourself. Thinking more means asking, is this necessary? Is this kind? Is this useful or just noise? Restraint is a skill, and it changes how people see you. When you speak with intention, people start to lean in. They sense your words are chosen. They respect that you are not trying to dominate the room. You are trying to deliver value. I have seen quiet men shift the tone of a whole room with one sentence. Not because they were loud, but because they waited for the right moment. And honestly, that is the kind of man I aim to be. Do not waste your voice proving things that silence can say better. Do not react just because you feel pressure to respond. Take your time, sit with your thoughts, let them sharpen, then speak. Because real power is not in how often you talk. It is in how well you choose your words. Summary: real strength is inner control. Let us stop pretending strength comes from noise, titles, or validation. It does not. Real strength, the kind that lasts, the kind that shapes destiny, starts and ends within you. You have just walked through 7 core truths that challenge the very way most men live. Do not believe every thought. Your mind is not always your ally. Talk less, observe more. Real presence does not need a spotlight. Control only what is yours. Freedom begins where control ends. Stop watering what is already dead. Let the past rot if it no longer feeds you. Accept what is real. Truth, even when painful, is the only path forward. Use silence as your weapon. Stillness shakes louder than shouting. Speak less, think deeper. Wisdom is not reactive. It is intentional. You now know what most men avoid their whole lives. You now see the map. The question is, will you follow it? Here is the challenge. Not for one day, but for the rest of your life. Can you sit with discomfort without reacting? Can you let go of what you cannot control and double down on what you can? Can you speak with purpose instead of panic? Because anyone can be loud. Anyone can react. Anyone can fake confidence. But it takes a damn strong man to stay calm in chaos, clear in conflict, and quiet in a world obsessed with shouting. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. It is a way of life." That is not just a quote. Think about this. What would your life look like if, starting tomorrow, you stopped trying to control everything and just mastered yourself? What would happen if, for 1 week, you chose silence over reaction, reflection over explanation, focus over fear? Would people treat you differently? Would you start to respect yourself more? Sit with that. Now, I want to hear from you. What part of this hit you hardest? What lesson do you know you need to apply, but have been avoiding? Drop it in the comments below. Let this be your moment of ownership. And if this message stirred something real in you, share it with another man who needs to hear it. Subscribe, because the next video, we are going even deeper into the discipline that makes a man unstoppable. This is your call to level up. Do not miss it. This is not just content. Let others chase attention. You chase mastery. And it starts right now with you and your inner control.